What is all new HAVAL H9 really like when a person really owns it? So today we're gonna hear from the real owner and from the one and only Ilya from Клубный Сервис. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Dmitry, in case you're new here, and we're going back to the one and only Клубный Сервис Moscow and their host Ilya. We're translating their personal impressions from ownership of HAVAL H9. So here, what's happening here is that Ilya's very good personal friend, Max, is an owner of HAVAL H9 in Moscow, Russia. They bought it for exorbitant amount of money due to their inflated prices. I'm gonna tell you more about this in the translation of this video. And this is not one of those abstract first impression or even disassembly videos. It's different. So let's hear from them what they really think as owners of this vehicle. Is it good enough? Is it not good enough? Is it more than just the looks? Because the looks are rather great. Again, subjective opinion, but I think that they're great. Instead of promoting any of the sponsors, I'm going to use this segment to tell you explicitly that the drops of the views in my videos have been noticed by me. So not many of you are watching my long form videos, even though the quality arguably, unless you tell me otherwise, I can take it, tell me. I don't think the quality has dropped, but viewership has dropped. A lot competes for your attention, I understand it, I don't hold it against you, whatever. It is just life is life. But there is very little motivation for me to produce long form reviews if 500 people watch it. So, you know what I'm saying? That's why I'm looking towards shorts, YouTube shorts. I'm going to be producing a lot more shorts because that's where the views are. I still deliver the right message to you, and I'm not that much reliant on the monetization of this particular channel. I do other projects, okay? So, if you have an opinion on this, if you have questions for me, if you have some insights for me, this is me sponsoring my own video and using this segment to reach out to you, my friends, and invite your thoughts so that you impact the future of this particular channel going forward. Does it make sense? Without any further ado, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for helping make this channel better for yourselves as well as for me, of course. And let's hear from Ilya. So this HAVAL H9 was bought for 4.6 million rubles, which is an equivalent of 55.7 thousand American dollars, or a whopping 86.3 thousand Australian dollars. Over 80 grand for this car they paid in Russia. Keep this in mind because this is important. It's a diesel engine, 2.4 liter version. The vehicle is about 5 meters long, so obviously a smart owner here didn't want a 2-liter turbo petrol engine and wanted more power. This was the motivation of Max, Ilya's friend who bought this vehicle. What adds to authenticity and uniqueness of this review is that Ilya and his friend went on a road trip of a reasonable length, as I mentioned in the intro. He says 1,000 kilometers, where they both had a lengthy experience in the vehicle, sitting in those seats, adjusting for a lengthy drive, as well as experience driving it on the road, not just standing there. So he says what he didn't like straight up. Well, this white front, the white grille, the chromy bits, it looks bad after being exposed to the elements and after being, beaten up by all the debris and everything else that comes there from the road. It's hard to keep in a pristine state, at least according to them. It gets dirty, it gets scratched, and other kind of things. Apparently, there is a very cheap solution available from AliExpress where you can buy one of those blackout add-ons. It's kind of like a slap-on plastic or whatever the material is that you can basically turn all this chrome into black and therefore also protect it with a layer of thin plastic, I imagine. And that's what is highly, highly recommended for owners of this square-shaped nose vehicle, especially if you're planning to take long road trips. So he also Max protected this car straight away with one of those invisible films, like they kind of pull this film over the paint to protect the vehicle. Apparently, according to Ilya, they offer this service, and normal shaped vehicles are fairly easy to do this with. Like, it costs some money, but it's fairly easy to do. But with this squarish look of the vehicle and shape, it was actually not that easy. It was quite a pain and a half to put all this film all over this vehicle. They also did window tinting, quite obviously. The car looks really, really cool and imposing. Very, very fancy. They are comparing it here to the look of Mercedes Geländewagen because of its square shape and because of its off-roady capabilities. As he gets inside, he says that the fancy seats, all of these stated kind of fancy features such as built-in massage, heating, cooling, etc. In practice, it was still very uncomfortable for him to use these seats, at least for a person with as large a frame as his own, Ilyas. He's here, 2 meters tall, 190 kilograms or whatever he is. I don't know anymore. 150. So the main problem is no adjustable angle of the bottom seat cushion of the driver's seat, and that's causing real discomfort. So apparently on a long drive, he kind of goes into the particulars of saying, listen, like, pardon the direct address of the awkward topic here, but it's very hard to make your bum comfortable on that seat. Fuel economy is mentioned. It's a brand new car, and currently he says it kind of consumes about 12.5 liters per 100 kilometers of diesel fuel on a highway. Not even a city drive. That's a lot. But they both think that maybe it's because the car is truly brand new, like 1,500 kilometers on the clock or something like that, and the engine hasn't even broken in yet. So fuel consumption will go down, which remains to be seen, of course, as far as the accuracy of numbers is concerned. As Ilya's friend Max, the owner of this car, is an IT professional, he found a way to apply alternative software, basically, for the infotainment system and the instruments, the digital instruments cluster, which changed the whole theme and layout of those instruments. It changed it for the better. As Ilya kind of says that, look at these analog style odometer and speedometer. I really like it. And in my humble opinion here, translating this original review, I agree with him. I think it looks so much better than the traditional GWM thing with the rotating planets and other stuff. The strange designers decided that it's better for their vehicles. So this improved the situation much so. And this update took, according to Ilya, about 2 hours to apply to the vehicle. I'm very happy to hear that it's even possible, as I would have found a way to do the same immediately. Of course, this is not an encouragement for anyone else to do it, because it most likely will void the warranty. They are not talking about warranty here. It's Russia there. Once you buy the car, it's your own problem. You have to pay cash for everything, which is why all of this longevity of the vehicles, making sure it's serviceable, etc., becomes triple important to them, more so than for us here, probably in Australia, South Africa, wherever you are. Ilya says that when you drive on a not perfectly smooth road surface, the car shakes a little bit, and it's actually apparently quite hard to use the electronic infotainment panel with various controls within as you tap your finger on the screen. And firstly, you need to hit the right tap sensitive area of the screen where the right icon would respond promptly, as well as it has to happen pretty quickly. It's not like you have a long time to press your finger like on a fingerprint reader and hold it there. You're driving, and it's not very easy, so it's not super practical. Funnily enough, he talks about one thing that I hated about my own HAVAL H6, and the problem that Great Wall Motor kept in their brand. Even in this new HAVAL H9, it's still there. I can't freaking believe it. It's the small size of the sunglasses holder. Tiny narrow lens glasses might fit, but any half-decent normal Ray-Bans, normal larger sunglasses with some kind of curve to them won't fit. You will put it in there and you will not be able to close that stupid sunglasses holder. It's absolutely crazy how they didn't design it properly and didn't listen to feedback for years by the looks of it, as once again, I was only one person with a tiny channel back then trying to raise this problem in 2022, and it is still there in 2025. I can't believe it. Next, Ilya complains about ergonomics of the central panel and where the cup holders are. My other favorite topic, mate. Put simply, these cup holders are placed incredibly uncomfortably. They're very deep and under the cap of the central panel box, if you can see his arm over there. So basically, unless you have a very tall and narrow bottle, it's just like a normal coffee cup, for example, especially a regular size, not a large one. It's apparently impossible to pull it out of there, especially if it's containing some hot liquid such as tea or coffee, once you allowed it to sink into one of those little niches. It's incredibly horribly designed. And apparently the same thing applies to use of the ashtray. Yeah, so of course it's easy to wave off and say, ah, smoking is bad for you anyway, you shouldn't be doing it anyway. Yeah, mate, but in reality, a lot of people smoke and they still want to use these utilities and amenities for what they're designed to be. So basically, Great Wall Motor says one big FU to smokers, making it virtually impossible for them to operate this ashtray as designed. Again, it wouldn't impact me and maybe you, but if it would impact someone who wants to buy a cup of coffee, then yeah, for sure it is going to be majority of us, me and you probably included there. What are they thinking is absolutely beyond me, and it's not like I am just here raging for this long. Trust me, in the original video, Ilya also went on and on and on about it for quite some time. So here is a life hack demonstrated by Ilya for you. To use the cup holders at all, to be able to use them, you need to extract them from those slots. There is this inset over there where they actually belong. Then they move the shelf under the central panel box forward. They slide it forward and they place cup holders on top of that shelf. It doesn't, of course, make it secure, so please be careful with hot liquids, but that's the only way for you to make them reachable. It's horrible, especially for this kind of money. Now, on the road, he actually starts by saying that sound insulation, the stock standard sound insulation, is very, very good. And the drive is rather quiet, which is very impressive considering that Klubniy Servis is selling aftermarket sound insulation services. So trust me, they wouldn't be saying a single good word about this if it wasn't half decent. Drivetrain and suspension are tuned pretty well, according to Ilya. Apparently reminds one of a well-tuned classic Japanese 4x4 suspension, while you maintain lower speeds. But as you get onto the open road and speed up, things change for worse, especially as you start maneuvering or gaining speed and then trying to get into a corner, into a curved corner at speed. So driving a massive heavy 4x4 on a frame without independent rear suspension as well, I might add, has to result in a certain level of side effects that you know, when you gain that speed and turn. You can see just how much tilting is happening to the body of the vehicle as Ilya tries to get into one of the turns while maintaining the speed. He says it feels uncomfortable. The whole vehicle kind of tangibly sinks. You can feel just how it sinks onto one side, perceivably losing power as well. And basically, it's a lot less impressive than it is on a straight line. Driving comfort doesn't exist here, according to Ilya. He says his back is already hurts, memories of the recent road trip are still fresh for him. Maybe, and most likely, you will feel different if you're slimmer and smaller. Eco driving mode also is just a gimmick, it's not usable. The car loses power instantaneously and very noticeably. The vehicle becomes very, very sluggish and quite unpleasant to drive. So you basically have to stay in sport mode all the time if you want to get anywhere. If this vehicle maintained the price point of about 2.5 million rubles, which would be about half the price, obviously, for what they bought it for over there, common sense would allow a person to accept all these imperfections. No one would be complaining too much about some of these bits and pieces. Of course, they're very annoying, they are legit, but at the same time, mostly what's happening is that mentally you can't help but compare it to an incredibly high price tag. If the vehicle was 45,000 Australian dollars equivalent rather than 86 whatever it was $1,000, of course you'd accept this. But at this price point, oh my god, quite honestly, one becomes a lot less tolerant, basically. In the original video narration, Ilya mentions to the purchase price constantly, by the way, as well, like he's raging about it the whole time. He says, listen, this is their flagman product, this is their best thing that they have offer at this crazy price, and these kind of little annoyances and imperfections are here is just incredibly annoying, irritating, and hard to accept. There is also no telescopic adjustment of the steering wheel, forgot to mention. Tilt adjustment is there, but it's not very generous. So ergonomics, again, sucks here, especially for larger humans, like with a larger kind of frame. When you're trying to get out of the vehicle as well as a tall individual, apparently it's very hard to find the threshold with your foot as you put it down. So you kind of have to overstep it. You're trying to reach for the ground straight away without taking that middle step of actually resting your foot on the threshold that you, well, would suspect that it's there for a good reason, but it's not. So basically, this maneuver is making your pants dirty because your leg stretches way much further, and you probably would kind of touch the side of the vehicle and that threshold that is probably dirty from the elements, whatever you're doing. Anyway, as you can see here, unless you're the right size, according to GWM designers, whatever that right size is, you're in the world of ergonomic herd. And this comes now from someone who experienced the car on the road and in ownership by his friend. Worth mentioning that these thresholds are also not removable. Unless you do an invasive amount of work there, unscrewing bolts and stuff from underneath, apparently they're pretty permanent there. You can't simply remove them completely and just basically drive without them. You'd better buy the car without them at all if some modification of this car, wherever you are, is available without those thresholds, if you have any suspicion that you are also large and they might be more of a hindrance than help. So summarizing, he has very confused impressions from this vehicle. So, like I already said, the main point that he's hammering is that it's way too expensive. Now, finishing on the positives, because negatives have been hammered enough in this video, it looks good. It still looks good. It's probably the best looking HAVAL vehicle out there, especially with tinted windows. There are always great 360-degree cameras, which is old news, I suppose, and it's applicable to a lot of HAVALs across the range. They are much better than Japanese ones. And premium options, if you put any value on those, such as sunroof, such as massages of the seats and all that, it does give you a little bit of a perception of luxury and that you're getting a lot for your money. Decent sound insulation and also decent suspension while you remain on a straight line. And this is it, my friends. This is what Ilya and Max from Klubniy Servis, what they think about ownership of this really overpriced HAVAL H9. What do you think? Did you enjoy the video? First of all, your like goes a long way, as I already said several times. I really thank you for this. And would you buy this? Would you buy this vehicle? Do you agree that about half price point from what they spent on this would be a fair price? Are you willing to pay a little bit more? What do you have to compare this to if you're willing to defend that this is still a very good vehicle that's worth your while? Maybe you are somewhere in the world where you already bought this vehicle and you have your own ownership impressions, because sharing these kind of perception impressions, while fun, it's still very theoretical, right? But once you start owning something, you are more educated, a lot more educated. And again, we all experience things differently, even if we both own the same cup, but I like it differently to how you like it. But still, that is what I would like to hear from you. That is something for your comments below this video, if you can be bothered, as well as do tell me, do you watch long form videos? Should I bother producing these long form videos, or do you think that shorts are gonna go a long way for both you and for me? That is something that I would really appreciate as an insight. Thank you very much for being with me today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you haven't yet, why not? And like the video as well. See you later. Talk to you next week about something else, value cars related in Australia and beyond. Goodbye for now.